Hey guys, so today we talked macromolecules and how we build a macro meal in class. So we're going to do a quick review. Let me make sure this focuses on what I'm going to write. Come on. Oh, got it. Okay. So we are going to talk through our 4 macromolecules. So we have lipids, proteins, carbs, and nucleic acids. Now, when we are talking about food, we are not talking about nucleic acids. You cannot eat nucleic acids to go and come into your body because nucleic acids are DNA and RNA. So your body creates what you need of those. However, it is essential for you to be able to be a living creature. If we were able to eat other things' DNA and use it, it literally would be you are what you eat. So we would know who eats too much bacon. What our body does is it uses carbs first as a quick energy source. So carbs are the quick and easy energy. I like to think of it as like when you are a toddler and you have an Easter egg hunt, and literally the Easter bunny just has eggs all over in the yard and you can see them easily. You can go pick them up. You can collect that energy super easy. Then, if there's no carbs for it to access, we use lipids. So these are long-term energy storage. And your lipids, I kind of think of it as like a scuba diver swimming through jello. Like it takes a little bit more effort, but the energy is still there to be collected. Then proteins, they run your body. So we try really hard not to use proteins for energy unless there is literally no other option. And you should have that full list of everything that each macromolecule does and its amount of energy storage and typical places where we can find it in your notes from the last lecture. So I'm not going to go through that one, but we're going to run through a few different foods and look at nutrition labels and see what we can tell by the nutrition labels and talk through some scenarios that you might find each of these pieces of food useful depending on what your scenario is. So this is going to be really useful to add details into your notes because you will have some times on quizzes where you are going to get a nutrition label or you're going to be given a scenario, and I want you to tell me what you would eat in that scenario to give your body the macromolecules that it needs to function. So we're going to start with some fettuccine. I raided my pantry. So when you look at a nutrition label, remember our calories are how much energy something gives us. So calories aren't necessarily good or bad, but they give us energy to be able to do everyday things. So to be able to make sure our organs are properly functioning, we need calories to burn. When you think really hard, it's actually proven that when you're taking like standardized tests and stuff, or like the ACT and SAT, your brain is actually working so hard that it burns extra calories. So you need to eat more before you take big tests like that. Same thing with like finals week and all that. And then one of the questions came up in class. So why do people try to limit how many calories they take in? So your body needs a certain amount of calories each day to do its normal function. And then calories above that get stored into the long-term storage. So if you are trying to cut calories to try to lose weight, you are trying to reach like that optimal daily value of what your body uses every day, and then it's going to pull from stores for the rest of it. Now, you still need calories to be able to function. So whatever you do, we're going to be smart about it. So then the first set of the nutrition label we're going to look at, the only thing we really care about is this total fat. So fats are our lipids, and our lipids are coming from different oils and different fat processing. So here we see that we have 1 gram or 1% of our daily value of total fat. that's not a huge source of lipids for our body, which our body does need to be able to pull that energy from and access whenever it needs. So we go over here and look at that, 42 grams of carbs. So our carbs are that quick energy storage that you have that your body can go to anytime it needs it. So if you're doing a really intense workout, the example I used in class is we used to have spaghetti dinners before soccer tournaments, like the night before. So this would give me, per serving, 42 grams of quick energy that I could access in my body. Now, some of that's coming from sugars, which are also falling under carbs, but then we also have 7 grams of protein. That's a pretty good amount of protein for pasta noodles. So between the carbs giving me quick energy and the protein, which helps my body function and run just generally, it's also going to help replenish muscles. So when you're like trying to build muscle, you're actually creating small tears in the muscle fibers that have to repair themselves, and that's how you grow muscle bigger. So this protein mixed with these carbs made this a really great like post-tournament meal, but not so great when it comes to fat. So obviously along with that, you have to have some spaghetti sauce. So let's look at this real fast. So we're still getting a good amount of calories, which remember is just the amount of energy that we have total to be able to use. Still not a ton of fat, and we don't want to put this into long-term storage because we want to have this quick and easily accessible. We don't want to have to scuba dive for that energy. We want to be able to get to it like an Easter egg out in the yard. So we have 11 grams of carbs, which is coming from some fiber and some sugar. So this is a really great addition to the carbs that we were already eating in our spaghetti noodles, fettuccine noodles, so that if you are going to be running a marathon or you're doing something really athletic for an entire day, you have the energy available to you right then and there. We also have a little bit of protein, which again helps our body just in general. Now, another fun fact is that when you have marathoners or half marathoners, if you're like me and can't actually do a marathon, they sell what's called goo, and it's basically like a weird thick liquid, and you take it mid-race to keep your energy levels up. Well, some professional marathoners, like people who run 26.2 miles just for their job, essentially, they actually refuel mid-race with gummy bears. So gummy bears, because they're sugar, have a really great source of carbs, and so your body can access that energy super quickly after digesting it. Okay, so we loaded up for our big tournament. Now, Gatorade, if you did not know, was actually created by University of Florida scientists. Their football team is the Florida Gators. Gatorade, Gatorade. Anyway, so Gatorade, you would drink in the middle of exerting yourself during a sporting event, or if you needed just an extra refuel. And something that I pointed out that was really interesting for most people in class. So it says it has electrolytes, which we all knew. Yeah, electrolytes, Gatorade. But it also tells you on the label that it has carbs to help you refuel your working muscles. So Gatorade has always had this on their label where it's telling you that there are carbs in there, which is science. So you're welcome. So not only is it a really great source of calories for energy to burn, we're not putting anything, this is a really shiny label, we're not putting anything into our long-term energy storage for fat. And then we have our 36 grams of carbs, most of it coming from added sugar. So that is that quick energy that you get. And if you've ever noticed, so a lot of people in class agreed with me that when you drink Gatorade, you kind of feel like thirstier afterwards. Well, notice how much salt is in here. So the salt mixed with the sugar is actually allowing us to access those carbs a little bit quicker and a little bit easier, which is why this is a really great drink for football players who are all padded up in the like 110 degree heat with high humidity playing football for hours and hours on end. But I would always follow this up with some water because that's quite a lot of salt. Now let's say you're in school let's say it's like been a full day, like we're going full day, and it's like right after lunch, and you just like hit that midday slump, that one. Most people would grab something that would be really quickly energizing. So like marshmallows or candy. So if we're getting quick energy from candy or marshmallows, what macromolecule does it contain? It's going to contain a bunch of carbs. And you'll actually see here that we aren't putting any fat away into long-term storage, but we have 25 grams of carbs at the ready for us to be able to use right then and there. It also says less than 1 gram of protein. Please do not try to eat enough marshmallows to get protein. It's not going to be great. So these quick carbs, as soon as we eat a bunch of sugar, so you eat a bunch of candy trying to get your energy up, your body's using it. That's when you feel hyper. That's when you're like, oh, I have all this energy, I need to burn it. Some people, when they have too much sugar, they start sweating because their body is trying to figure out what to do with all that easily accessible energy, and then you sugar crash. So that's when you have to think about your body went from having all this stuff that was right there and easy for it to access. It's like running through that field picking up Easter eggs in the backyard, straight into trying to scuba dive for more energy. So your body kind of hits that wall, and you just kind of have to take a step back and figure out what's going on. It's because sugar is our friend and also not great long-term solutions. Another really interesting one this time of year, pumpkin. This is pure pumpkin. Literally, its only ingredient is pumpkin. Look at that. And pumpkin is technically a fruit, vegetable. It's a gourd, it's a vegetable. Fruit, vegetable. Anyway, it's been a long day. So we don't have any long-term storage for fat, but we do have carbs accessible to us. Because remember, fruits and vegetables have natural carbohydrates in it. They have natural sugars in them, which allow us to get that quick access energy, and then we have a little bit of protein. So when you have a pumpkin spice latte, you're getting a little bit of extra quick energy there for you. Now if we look at something like pepperoni, so more on the meaty side, if I were to ask you what macromolecule you'd think it would have, you'd probably say protein because it's meat. However, one thing we also want to consider is the fact that most meats come from muscle and fat of animals. So while we have the protein, we're also going to have a really good source of fat with it, and that is going to be our lipids in our long-term storage. So we have protein, we have fat, but look, we don't have any carbs. So we can really see how heavy we are on the different macromolecules when it comes to meat like that. We're going to go through 2 more on my back table. Okay. Mayonnaise. This is special avocado oil mayo because I had it in my fridge. But mayonnaise is typically made with an egg base, and it is considered a fat. So because it's considered a fat, it's going to fall under our lipids or long-term energy category. So we have a decent amount of calories here. And we also have a really good amount of fat, which is that long-term storage. Now, we're not going to go into all these different polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fats. But when you look over here, no carbs, there's no sugar in it, and there's no protein. This is a source of lipids and purely lipids when we're talking our macromolecules. And another thing to note about lipids, if we think about all of our lipids overall, so like butter is a really great source of lipids, mayo, oil, all these things, we cook and bake with these, and our taste buds are actually kind of wired to taste that and be like, oh, that is so good. So like when you cook a steak and you cook it in butter or you cook it in some oil, it adds flavor to it because our bodies want to store that long-term energy so that we always have it. So you crave sugar and carbs for that quick energy. Your body wants quick energy at access at all times in case you have to run from like a saber-toothed tiger, which we don't anymore, but we did back in the day. And then you also are craving lipids as the fat because we want to have energy that we can rely on later on. So that's why those things are all kind of connected. So very last, I'm going to share with you probably the not greatest advice, but still. One of the things that I brought that actually turns out to be very well diverse in macromolecules. Cookie dough. So this is edible cookie dough. It doesn't have any egg in it, and we'll talk about that specifically in just a second. It's really good though, I'm gonna be honest. So we've got a good decent amount of calories in here. But if you notice, we have some total fat, which means that we have lipids in long-term storage, which is one of the essential things that we need. Then we also have a really good amount of carbs, so that quick energy from that sugar. Not so much protein. If we had cookie dough with egg in it, we would have more protein, but that's unhealthy to eat uncooked. So just gonna not suggest it, but say that technically that feels like a really well-rounded meal because you have your lipids, your carbs, and your protein all available to you at the exact same time. So when are you going to want to use these sorts of things? Lipids you need in your body all the time. Lipids are kind of that energy reserve. You need a little bit of fat in your body. And I'm not saying that like you need to go put on weight or anything. I'm just saying that your body feels more comfortable when it knows that there is long-term energy available to it. So please do not try to cut out all lipids. I will say that in high school, it is very important that you understand that you are still growing and your body is still developing your height and different processing and neural connections and all those sorts of things. You need all of these to make that really work. But there are some times where you'll see people maybe cut out proteins. Maybe somebody's a vegan. That's totally fine. But proteins, because they run your body and they're so important, you have to replace them with other methods. So while lipids are our mayonnaise and our butter and our oils, proteins can come in the form of meat. They can also be eggs, and milk has a lot of really great protein in it. Also nuts. So almond milk, double whammy. Not really. You're still only getting nuts. But anyway, proteins are also very essential. So we have to make sure that we're getting enough of those. However, because they can be so complicated, they can, like eating too much steak can really slow down your system as it tries to break it down and put proteins to work everywhere it needs to be. Carbs, we have bread, we have pasta, but we can't forget just sugar in general is a carb. Also, our carbs are our fruits and vegetables. Anyway. So lipids for long-term energy, proteins to help run your body. So make sure that if you're trying to build muscle, you have to have enough protein. If you are feeling a little sick, you want to make sure you have enough protein to help balance different things like hormone and insulin levels to be able to do different chemical reactions within your body, which is our enzymes. But then carbs are really great for that quick energy spurt. So that's if you're working out, if you are feeling like a midday slump, then carbs are going to be your friend right then and there. Some people as adults will try to do a low carb diet, and that's because when you don't have any carbs to use, then your body starts using that long-term energy, which as an adult, your body does not process as well as when you are young. So that is why you'll see a lot of low carb diets out there. Again, at your age, I wouldn't consider that a great idea. So this has been a quick run through. I hope that you were able to see from the nutrition labels kind of how we want to break it down and how we want to make sure we are getting everything for our body that it needs from the nutrition labels. We will spend a huge section of the semester on nucleic acids, so we'll come back to that in a minute. But I hope you feel confident enough picking these out and knowing what situations you would use them in.